With that being said, we have Peter Alexander of NBC News getting a litany of questions in to Karine Jean-Pierre regarding the debt ceiling limit. Let's go ahead and roll it.
Just to be clear on timing, is any date before June 1st, in your eyes, good enough to get this thing done?
Look, we have to get this done. That's what I can tell you.
Is like Friday the goal, Saturday the goal?
You're asking me for a date. I'm not gonna get into dates. What I can say, there's an urgency. We want to see this done as soon as possible. As it relates to the debt limit, the teams are going to meet on a regular basis, multiple times a day, to deal with the budget negotiations. And this could be, this could be done today. Actually, I guess the
reason I ask is because there have been ramifications before. We've witnessed this back in 2011. It went down to the wire. They still beat the ex-state. They still got the debt limit raised at the last minute. But then days later, the credit rating was downgraded. How confident are you that, given the dysfunction we've witnessed here, it going down to the wire, our credit rating would not be downgraded?
Look, this is why the president has, Peter, this is why the president for the last 5 months has stated how important and how critical it is to get this done, how critical it is for Congress to do their constitutional duty. This is why you have heard an echo from here over and over and over.
If the president thought it was so critical, he would have been meeting with McCarthy about this way sooner. He just started meeting with the guy like last week. And even then, right, he goes to Hiroshima, he goes to Japan, and then, yeah, he comes back a day early. But then when Peter Doocy questions Karine Jean-Pierre in Japan about, hey, is the president able to meet with McCarthy while he's there, or at least send Kamala Harris, who's in Los Angeles, to maybe the Capitol to deal with this whole negotiation thing? She goes, well, how's the president going to do that? How possibly could he do that, Peter? And Peter's like, well, he spent his whole first half of his term like making Zoom calls and just doing everything over the internet because of COVID-19 and what's taking place there. He very easily could call in. So he's not taking this seriously whatsoever, folks. He's not taking it serious on one iota. We're about 9 days from this thing collapsing here, and nothing's being done. McCarthy just came out today. It's like, yeah, we're not any closer than we were yesterday to solving this whole thing.
A repetitive one of how we think and believe this should have moved forward.
It didn't happen. So how confident are you that it wouldn't be done?
Look, from what we see and what has been happening in these budget negotiations, in these conversations, we see these conversations moving in a productive way. That is important, and we'll get there.
Hold on to that, you guys, about moving in a productive way, because in our third segment today, 100% contradicts the negotiation talks that are taking place because Joe Biden's not budging. She says it herself. Just wait till we get to it. Hold on to that. She says the word productive in this entire hour-long freaking press briefing. Everything's productive. She got called out for it. We're not going to cover it, but I'm just making you aware that all the reporters, that was a very typical answer from her. Oh, everything's productive. We're moving forward in this, even though McCarthy came out and said they aren't.
It has to be a bipartisan, right? It has to be a bipartisan, reasonable budget negotiation.
Let me ask you, yesterday we heard from Speaker McCarthy multiple times, spoke multiple times in the morning, spoke multiple times after the meeting took place. We heard from the president very briefly during the meeting. For Americans that feel like they're not hearing from the president regularly, not hearing from the vice president regularly, not hearing from cabinet officials right now, where is the messaging from the White House on this beyond at this podium?
Well, you've heard from the president multiple times over the weekend. You've heard from the president multiple times during the last 5 months. He has been very clear. You've heard from me. You've heard from others. We've had our economic team out there talking about this on your network, on other networks. And so we've been very clear for the past 5 months. I wouldn't just look at the last couple of days. The past 5 months, consistently. You've heard from this president.
Feel like it's winning the messaging war on this?
I mean, look, what we have been very clear. I know folks have asked me, about this in the past, and what we saw in 2011 is that, and polling showed this, that the GOP was blamed for that. That's how the Americans saw the outcome of the debt limit there and what was happening with the negotiations back then. That's what the polling showed. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue to either speak from here almost every day. We speak from here about what's going on. You've heard from the president. You've heard from the economic team. You've heard from Democrats, the leadership in the House, in the Senate speak to this, about the urgency, about Congress actually needing to act and doing their constitutional duty.
Last one is you said that if both sides are working in good faith, this will get done. Does the president believe that Kevin McCarthy is working in good faith?
What the president believes is that the conversations have been productive, and that is important. And just to reiterate this, negotiations are hard. They're not easy. This is democracy in action as we see it, as we have looked at what's been going on these past couple of days and weeks. And what both sides need to understand is neither side is going to get exactly what they want. But what we need to have is a bipartisan, reasonable budget agreement, and that's what we're working towards.
You didn't say the president thinks Kevin McCarthy is acting in
Look,
good faith.
what I said is that if everyone keeps working in good faith. So, yes, we believe that that is what is happening. There is a good faith effort here. We just have to continue to do that. We have to keep doing that, and then we can get into a bipartisan, reasonable budget agreement.
Thank you, Grant.
Okay, so hold on to the idea of her saying productive and in good faith, because we're about to pull up Jackie Heinrich of Fox News in one moment, which kind of contradicts her statements in terms of acting in good faith, because she's calling McCarthy and the MAGA wing of the Republicans extremists, and the head of the Democrat Party, or at least one of them, is calling them that. So we'll get to that in just one moment. But I do want to highlight the aspect of talking about 2011 under Barack Obama's presidency, saying, the GOP were to blame. She is correct on that. That is where the blame went. But you could also say that Obama's popularity, I believe around that time, was also greater than what we're seeing from Joe Biden. Joe Biden is collapsing this country from the inside out. You look at inflation, you look at the American Rescue Plan, you look at what he's doing at the border, you look at our foreign policy, our domestic policy, Russia invading Ukraine, China wanting to invade Taiwan, Iran nuclear deal, Iran's supposedly building nuclear weapons right now. You have Iran wanting to wipe Israel off the face of the planet. I know that's not a change from anything, but they're a lot closer to doing that than they were even before. So there's a lot of things that are happening here where I believe Joe Biden's getting most of the blame right now for what's taking place. And I'll tell you why. Because he's spending money up the wazoo. That's the whole reason why we had 40-year inflation. That's why people are paying more at the pump. People are still feeling the effects of what Joe Biden has done and his leadership here in this country. So they're going to side more with the GOP going, hey, can we just figure out a budget to where I'm not having to feel this at the gas pump, at the grocery store, taking out a mortgage, financing a vehicle? Can I not feel the effects of that? Can we just figure this out finally because we're $32 trillion in debt? It sounds a lot more reasonable coming from the GOP side of the aisle than the Democrat side of the aisle in current times, especially with, again, Joe Biden's leadership. So I think it's a miscalculation here from the Democrat Party. I think the Democrats are the ones that are going to be looked at here, not in favor where the GOP is. I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Bald Brad Show. If you did, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all our future content.